There's an asset class in commercial real estate right now with a vacancy rate of 2%. Not 2% in one city, 2% nationally. It's not warehouses, it's not apartments, it's data centers. The buildings that store and process the servers running everything from your group chat to the entire AI boom. A decade ago, this was a niche corner of real estate. Today, it's one of the largest capital absorption stories in the entire industry. And here's the part that should get your attention if you care about industrial real estate. Data centers aren't just competing with warehouses for investor dollars. In a growing number of markets, they're competing for the exact same dirt, the exact same power lines, and in some cases, the exact same buildings. So is this a separate market quietly booming next door? Or is it slowly eating industrial real estate from the inside? Let's break it down.
To understand this collision, you first need to understand something most people get wrong. Data centers and warehouses are structurally more similar than you'd think. Data centers are typically built on industrial zone land, using construction methods that look a lot like large format logistics facilities. Big rectangular buildings, heavy floor loads, large clear spans, similar site layouts.
But there's a critical difference. A data center needs far more complex power, cooling, and connectivity infrastructure than a warehouse ever will. A 1 million square foot distribution center might need enough power to run some lighting, conveyor systems, and loading equipment. A data center of the same size can require power on the scale of a small city. That difference used to keep the two worlds mostly separate. Developers built warehouses where trucks could move easily. They built data centers wherever fiber and power happened to be available, often in quieter, more specialized locations.
But the AI boom changed the math. Demand for data center capacity has exploded so quickly that developers are now scouring the exact same industrial corridors, the same highway interchanges, the same population centers, the same available land that logistics companies have relied on for years. Two industries that used to operate in separate lanes are now showing up to bid on the same parcels. Here's the twist most coverage of this story misses. The real battleground isn't land, it's power. Large logistics hubs, advanced manufacturing facilities, and data centers all require significant electrical infrastructure. And increasingly, they're competing for access to the very same substations, transmission lines, and utility expansion projects.
Historically, industrial developers evaluated a site mainly on two things: how easily trucks could get in and out, and whether there was enough labor nearby. Data center developers evaluated sites on fiber connectivity and uptime reliability, two completely different checklists. Today, both industries are increasingly asking the same question first: is there enough power here, and can we get it fast enough?
You can see this play out in real time in Central Texas. Austin's data center boom has made power access, not just location, the main driver of land value and industrial site desirability across the entire region. The competitive frontier isn't just Austin anymore either. It's spreading outward along a broader corridor into smaller cities that happen to sit near strong utility infrastructure. That's the story playing out across dozens of markets right now. Land that used to be priced like ordinary industrial real estate is being repriced based on something totally different: its proximity to power.
So when a data center developer and a warehouse developer both want the same parcel, who wins? Right now, it's usually the data center.
Major institutional players, firms like Blackstone, Brookfield, KKR, and Equinix, are competing for a small, shrinking inventory of power-ready sites. And when a landowner has a parcel with real, confirmed access to power, developers who can bring pre-permitted, pre-powered land to market are commanding serious premiums over standard industrial pricing. The return profile explains why.
Ground-up data center development in power-constrained markets is targeting returns in the 12 to 18% range. Compare that to traditional industrial development in those same markets, which typically targets somewhere around 7 to 9%.
When one type of building can justify roughly double the target return on the same acre of dirt, it's not hard to guess which developer is going to outbid the other. This is fundamentally changing how land gets priced. Land that used to compete purely within industrial pricing models is now being evaluated within infrastructure pricing models, models that support higher valuations and much longer investment horizons, because the tenant on the other end is a hyperscaler signing decades-long commitments, not a retailer signing a 5-year lease. Now, here's the part of the story that should actually excite industrial investors rather than worry them. Data centers don't just consume industrial land. They also create industrial demand. Every gigawatt of new data center construction generates roughly 2 million square feet of spillover industrial demand. That's real, measurable warehouse leasing activity created purely as a side effect of the data center boom.
Where does that demand come from? The scale and complexity of these AI campuses require far more than just land, power, and fiber. Electrical equipment, cooling systems, precision hardware, and specialized components all need to be procured, stored, staged, and serviced. And that work happens in ordinary industrial buildings nearby, not inside the data center itself. This is already showing up in headlines. Hyperscalers like Meta and Google have started leasing industrial space next door to their AI campuses, specifically to stage the equipment needed to build and maintain them.
And critically, a lot of this demand isn't just short-term construction staging. Much of it is tied to long-term operations, meaning it sticks around long after the data center itself is built. In other words, you don't need to own a data center to benefit from the data center boom. If you own or you're looking to buy a mid-size industrial building near a growing data center cluster, you may already be sitting on some of the strongest, least talked about demand in the entire industrial sector.
Of course, this collision isn't without real risk. Industrial developments and data center developments place very different demands on utilities, transportation systems, and local economies. That mismatch is creating real friction, infrastructure misalignment, strained local grids, and in some communities, genuine political pushback against new data center projects.
There's also a supply-side risk worth understanding. The power bottleneck is real, and it's slowing things down more than most headlines suggest. Roughly 2/3 of the 16 gigawatts of US data center capacity that was slated for construction in 2026 hadn't even broken ground as of this spring. An estimated $150 to $200 billion in planned spending is expected to slip into 2027 and 2028.
That means the data centers are eating everything narrative, while directionally true, is running slower in practice than the headlines imply. For industrial investors, that's actually useful information. It suggests there's more time than people assume to position around this trend before it fully plays out. Land near reliable power is turning into a fundamentally different asset class than ordinary industrial land, and that split is only going to get sharper as AI infrastructure demand keeps climbing. At the same time, the spillover effect means plenty of traditional industrial owners, the ones who never touch a server, are quietly benefiting from this boom without ever competing directly against a hyperscaler. The real skill for investors going forward isn't picking a side. It's understanding exactly which side of that power line your property sits on.
If this kind of breakdown helped you understand where real estate is actually headed, hit subscribe. This channel is where we cut through the headlines and get to what the data actually says every single week. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.